Kakodosh Boker Or Masechet Sanhedrin Daf Yomi Daf Mem Amud Aleph 48:1. Hayu bodkin otan. They used to check the edim b'sheva chakirot with 7 types of chakirot. What are the 7 chakirot exactly? Right. Number 1, be'ez shavua. Right. With what machzor of shemitah were they going to start? Be'ez shana. What year of the shemitah? Be'ez chodesh. Which month? Bekama b'chodesh. Which day of the month? Be'ez yom. Which day of the week? Be'ez sha'ah. Which hour of the day? Be'ez makom. In which place? So those are 7 chakirot that they used to come. They used to check over in order to make sure whether be'emet, right, these edim are proper or not. Remember the chakirot or leikuba, which means that if they made a mistake in the bidika, it's a problem. They made a mistake in other things, it's something else. So he says like this. He says, Rabbi Yosef Omer, right? He comes and he says like this. He says, Rabbi Yosef says that they wouldn't come and check the edim only with 3 chakirot. What are the 3 chakirot exactly? He says, Beze yom, beze shah, beze makom. What day, what time, and what place. Makirin atemoto. They used to come and say, do you know the guy? Right? Meaning if it was a Jew, if it was a non-Jew. Hitretembo. Did you come and give a warning to the killer, to the murderer? Right? If let's say they were talking about Avodah Zarah. Miavad, who did he serve? Which Avodah Zarah? Uvemavad. How did he serve exactly? Okay? The more bedikot that you do, the better that it is. The more you cross-examine. Right? There was a story with Ben Azad that he actually came and he checked even like mamash how the figs looked where they were. What's the difference between חקירות ובדיקות? חקירות, אחד אומר אני יודע עדותם בטלה. If it's by a חקירה and somebody says I don't know, the entire thing is annulled. However, בדיקות, אחד אומר בדיקה and one of them says I don't know, אפילו שניים, even if they both say they don't know, עדותן קיימת, it's going to be good. אחד בחקירות ואחד בדיקות, בזמן שמחישים זה את זה, עדותם בטלה. Meaning, it's better to say that I don't know than to say the wrong answer. Because if their answers are contradictory, doesn't matter where it is, whether it's in the Bidikot or Chakirot, it's annulled. Okay? Echad Omer, imagine one person comes and he says, Vishnayim b'chodesh, the 2nd day of the month. Echad Omer, one of them says, Vishnayim b'chodesh, on the 3rd day of the month. Edutan kayemet, it's still going to be kayam. Shezeh yodea b'iburo shel chov, v'zeh yodea. One of them realized that it became a full month or not. Another one didn't realize. Zeh Omer, Vishnayim echad Omer chamisha, but if it was going to be 3 and 5, Edutan betela, it's going to be batel. One of them says bishte shaut, 2 hours in the day, and one of them says 3 hours in the day. It's still going to be good. But if one of them says 3 hours, one says it's 5, meaning it's too big of a difference, it's going to be batel. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no, it's still going to be kayam, right? But he says like this: Echad Omer bechamesh, Echad Omer sheva. Why? He says between, let's say, 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 4, it's still the same thing. But if it's going to be 5 and 7, which basically that's what the shkia, that's when there's a big difference. Meaning, even a 2-hour gap in the day, I'm going to say, it's 11 o'clock or 9 o'clock. It's not 6:30 or 7 o'clock, which the difference is between the nets and not net. It's the same thing. You're looking up. Remember, they didn't have the clocks, right? They didn't have a watch. Right? So for them, they look at, it's the same thing. But once it's going to become such a big difference, then no. Right? Then it's going to be bedetila.
Rabbi, you said 2 hours is good. It's just your.
So Echad Omer, one of them says 5, one of them says 7. It's going to be betila. But at the 5th hour, the sun is going to be in the east, and the 7th hour, it's already going to be in the west, which means that that's already too much of a difference that they're going to understand, and therefore it's not going to be good. After they already did the chakirot of the first one, they bring in the second witness. And they do the exact same thing to the second witness. If their testimonies are the same, so then they're going to try to come and they're going to try to find the zechut, right, of the guy in order not to come and to be gomer lechova. Imagine right now one of the edim comes and he says, "Yesh li lamed alev zechut," or echad min talmidim, "Yesh li lamed alev zechut." Mishatkin oto, right? They're going to come and they're going to say, "Keep quiet, please." Right? That means, right here, if it's going to be in the one of the edim saying it or one of the talmidim, they tell him, please, right? So one more time, if it's going to be one of the edim that says yesh lamed alev zechut, or one of the talmidim, right? And he comes and he says yesh lamed alev chova, so therefore he comes and mishatkin oto. Amar echad min talmidim yesh lamed alev zechut, but if one of the talmidim says I could learn on him zechut, malin oto, they bring him up to the dainim, mushvin oto b'nehem, they sit him there, the entire day he's up there on the stands as one of the people which are actually speaking in zechut, right? That means they come and they upgrade him, right? They say, look, come. If be'emet there's mamashut to his words, meaning it's good what he's saying, show me, listen to him. Even if he says, right? Even if the guy himself, the defendant says, I have a zechut for myself, they listen to him. ובלבד שיש ממש בדבריו, as long as there's going to be ממשות to his words. ומצא לו זכות. What happens if they were מצאו לו זכות? פטרו, right? So he comes and he says, they're going to be פטרו, right? What does that mean? They would exempt him immediately. ואם לאו ונפנו מעבירין אותו, right? So they would come and they would push him off until the מחר, until the next day. ומזווגין זוגות זוגות, and then they would get a whole bunch of dayanim, right? In order to be לשא ולתת. והיו ממעטים מאכל ולא שותים יין כל היום. They wouldn't eat a lot, and they wouldn't drink wine the entire day. They would come in the entire night, they would be learning, right? They would be going back and forth. The next day, they would come to the Bedin. Hamzake Omer, which is the Dayan, which is Mizake, the Nidon would say, Ani Mizake, Mizake, Ani Mimkomi. I was Mizake and I'm still standing in the same place. Meaning I'm still being Mizake. I still say that he's going to be exempt. And the one that's Mechayev says, Ani Mechayev, Chayim Mikomi. Hamlamed Chova, Melamed Zechud. The one that said that he's guilty, he could change his mind to say that he's going to be innocent. But the one that says innocent, he cannot retract to say that he's going to be guilty. Ta'uba Davar. What happens right now if they made a mistake? Which means they don't know who was the one that said Zakai and who was the one that said Chayav yesterday. So you have the Shnei Sofrei Dainim, you have the two scribes of the Betin. Maskirinoto, they would remind them. If right now during the entire nighttime they found the Zechut Patru, they used to say he's exempt. And if not, they used to come and they used to take tallies. They used to take the counts of the Dainim and then they would paskin. If you have 12 that are mezakin and 11 that are going to be mechayvin, zakai. Remember, it's a betin of 23. So therefore, if you have 12 and 11, one extra saying zakai, he's going to be zakai. He's going to be exempt. Right? But if you're going to have 12 that are saying chayav, and you're going to have only 11 saying that he's going to be Zakai, or if you're going to have 11, one of them says in Yodea, even if you have 22 mezakin or mechayvin, and one person says in Yodea, Yosifu alaya dayanin. You always add on. But remember, whenever a person says in Yodea that he doesn't know, it's like there's no judge. So now you need the judge. Exactly, there's no quorum. So therefore, you have to actually come and you have to add on to the dayanim. How many do you add on? Shnaim. You never add on one judge. You always add two judges, right? And therefore, right, and that's what you were trying to do. Okay, you're always going to add on another two judges. Okay, and he says, so then again, you're going to add another two judges. Until you get to a betin of 71. Why don't you have 36 against 35? That's 71. So that 36 are saying he's exempt, 35 saying no, zakai. If you have 36 saying he's chayav and 35 saying he's going to be zakai, danin elu keneged elu, they're going to continue judging against each other. They continue going until finally one of the people that says chayav, he's going to retract. But remember, the ones that said that he's zakai, he cannot retract to say that he's chayav. Meaning the ones that exempted him cannot retract. It's only the other ones that said chayav, he's allowed to retract. So we try to make sure that there's always going to be, right, the ones of the rov which are going to be mizakim. Says the Gemara, Menana Mile. How do we know all these words about the chakirot and sheva chakirot, 7 types of cross-examination? What's going on? Amar Rav Yudah says the Makatzi pasuk, ve'darashta ve'chakarta ve'shalta hetev. Right? It says over there, darashta, you're going to expound, you're going to be choker, which is a chakirah, right, to chokear, that's also in Spanish. You're going to look into it. Shalta, you're going to ask well. And it says, it says, which means you already have here 6. Why? Darashta, chakarta, sha'alta. Then it says, right, is another 2. And then it says, which is another one, which is 6. Meaning these are all different terminologies of looking into something and expounding upon it. Mem Amud 40b. So therefore, he comes and he says, if right now you're going to have another 2 shelot and you already had 5, right? So therefore he comes and he says, so therefore you have 7 in total. Okay, so he comes and he says, because the first 3 was darashta, chakarta, v'shalta, right? Then you're going to have v'ugal lecha v'shamata v'darashta, which is another 2, and then you're going to have also, right, another 2. So he comes and he says, he says maybe be'emet each one of the averot were separately, right? Which means 3 you need for irani dachat. Because each one of these 3, we're talking about different things. The first 3, which is was written about Iran Idachad, the entire city doing Avodah Zarah. The next 2, which is written about we were talking about Avodah Zarah. And the next 2 was talking about Edim Zomnim. So he comes and he says, instead of coming and put everything in one sandwich and saying that they're all talking about every single time that you have chakirot, you always do 7. It says, each one is differently. Meaning, if it's a case of Irani Dachat, you have to ask 3 chakirot. If it's a case of 2 chakirot. If it's a case of Edim Zomim, 2 chakirot. But if so, says the Gemara, why don't you just write it in one? Meaning, why do we have to start learning 3 by one, 2 by another, 2 by another one? Learn everything together. You have 7 chakirot, 7 cross-examinations. Answers the Gemara, yeah, but all 3 averot were written together. All 3 averot were written together that you need to be doresh the edim. So therefore, me'adad yalfe. So therefore, it doesn't have to be, meaning I don't have to write all 7 chakirot by one averah. The fact that all 3 averot are written together, that you have to be choked, you have to cross-examine the witnesses, we're going to say that you learn from each other. So it's kilu, it's written in the same thing. So ask the Gemara, he says, yeah, but they're not domeh to each other. Why? There's many svarot, many logics to differentiate between the 3 different types of sins. One of them is Irani Dacha, the entire city went to the Avodah Zarah. Another one is Edim Zomnim. Another one is going to be the concept of, so what's going on? So here he comes and he says, there's a siman, palat saif hatra, Irani Dacha lehanach tarte lodamia. He says, why? Let's try to explain. Irani Dachat is not compared to the other 2 of them, which is Avodah Zarah and Edzomim. Why? Shekem mamunan palat. He says, because at the end of the day, by the Irani Dachat, the Bnei Aid are going to be killed, right? The Bnei Aid is the people of the city, they're going to be killed, and also the property is going to be completely destroyed. So therefore, I'm going to say that just like the Torah was machmir on the punishment more than the other avirot, because that means even their property is confiscated, completely gone. That's it, So he says, so therefore they were also going to be machmir on the chakirot. Avodah Zarah lehanach tarte ludamia. Also, Avodah Zarah is not going to be the other ones. Why? Shekem b'saif. At the end of the day, whenever we're talking about the other 2, right, their mitah is going to be with saif. He says the Avodah Zarah is sekilah, right? Remember that whenever a person comes and he does Avodah Zarah, we're talking about a yachid, an individual. So whenever an individual does Avodah Zarah, it's sekilah, which is the highest form of punishment, right, of betin. This is saif. This is by the sword. It's not the stoning. Edim zomimim also is not compared to the other 2. He says sheken tzechim atrah. Edim zomimim, they need hatra'ah, right, in order to be mechayev an onesh and bedin. The other ones, masheken edim zomimim, right, that they're going to be punished, even if there was no hatra'ah, you don't need anything. Meaning, if you have an irani dachat, or you have a case of avodah zarah, if you don't give any warning, there's no death penalty. Edim zomimim, there's no hatra'ah. So therefore, each one has a stringency, which is not like the other. So says the Gemara, behetev hetev yalfina nadat. Yes, but did you realize all of them said, all the 3 averot use the terminology of hetev, and therefore thoroughly, very well, right? So therefore he comes and he says, hetev, hetev. The fact that it's written hetev by all 3, I'm learning a gzera shava that they all apply to each other, and therefore even though each one has a stringency that doesn't apply to the others, they're all the same. So says the Gemara, gzera shava mufne. And this Gzera Shava has to be mufne. What does it mean mufne? It's extra, and you're not learning anything else from it. Why? Di'ilo mufne, but if it's not going to be extra, meaning that you already learned something else from it, and therefore it's not free, meaning it's not free, that because it's being learned something else in addition. Ikal mifrach, then you could ask the question. Because basically, again, here you could ask the question that each one is not compared to each other. So therefore it has to be that the Gzera Shava is mufne. So says the Gemara, lie, it's true. Afluye mufne, be'emet it's mufne. The Torah could have written, right? And it changed from its language, and it said hetev. Meaning you could have just said that it looked into it. Why does it look well into it? Like, like very deep. Well, why does it say the word hetev? Hetev comes from the word of tov, by the way, right? Which is good, right? Meaning that it looks very well into it, very good into it. Right? So he says, why do you need that? Obviously, he's coming to teach you that we're talking about that it's going to be free. And still, it's going to be mufne only from one side, which means that not all the words are going to be nidrash, only part of them. Bishma hanachtarti mufnehu. I understand in the 2 parashiot of Edim Zomim and of Avodah Zarah that it's not written chakira, so therefore there it's written the word hetev. Why? Because there you need the gzera shava. Mishum davil michtav, because bemet you needed to write it. But irani dachat mayavil michtav. Right? What should have been written? Right? By Ina Nidachat, it's written v'darasha v'chakta v'shalta hetev. What do you want to write? Hakti v'kulo. It's written all 3 of them. It's written drisha v'chakira, right? And it's written v'shalta hetev. So then, what do I need now? So therefore, since right now the word hetev and this parasha is actually a shinui lashon, So it's actually considered that it's mufne, that it's extra. So says the Gemara, hatam nayav. No, also in the other cases, it's also going to be extra. Meaning the case of Yira Nidachat, it's also extra. Why? What was the case of the Yira Nidachat? He says over there, midharva lemichtav darosh tidrosh or chakor takor. It didn't say that. It didn't say a terminology. You have to expound. Like the double language or chakor takor. The shani krab dibura, and it said right be'tev. It says right. What did it say? This is by the avodah zarah, the ira nidachat. Sorry. So what did it say by ira nidachat? He comes and he says by ira nidachat. He comes and he says v'darashav chitav shalta hetev. So he comes and he says shemamina lafnuye, for the fact that it didn't use the same terminology of v'darashta, right? Darosh tidrosh or chakor tachkor, right? And you use each one differently, so therefore that's why he's saying it's going to be mufne. Okay. Ve'atu nechenakin bekavachomer miniskalim neragim. So mitat chenek, right? Which also they're going to learn it from a kalvachomer, from the sekila and from the hereg. Ve'atu nisrafim bekalvachomer miniskalim, which means like this. Right now, right, we know that every single one of these avirot had different death penalties. So ira nidachat is hereg, right? Avirav dozera sekila, right? Edim zomim depends what they wanted to do. So therefore, he comes and he says, we learn, right, the chenek with it from a kavod. Meaning, how do you know you have to do the 7 chakirot by all the 4 death penalties? You don't have the 4 death penalties here written. You have sekila and you have hereg, right? Hereg, but you do not have anything else. So chenek, you learn a gzera shava from everything else. But chenek is the last one on the list. So you can learn it a gzera. You learn it from a how do you call this? From a kalvachom and from everything else. And serefa, you're going to learn it from a kalvachomer, right? Yes, saif. That's the sword, right? Serefa, you're going to learn from a kalvachomer from sekila. So says the Gemara, hani chal rabbanan. This is good according to the rabbis that they say sekila is more strict. But according to Rabbi Shimon, we already learned this. That according to Rabbi Shimon, he says the opposite. Serefa is more chamur. What are you going to say? Meaning we paskin, and that's what we say on Yom Kippur. Sekila, serefa, hereg, v'chereg. That's the order. So sekila is the most strict. But according to Rabbi Shimon, serefa is the most strict. So I don't have a place that tells you have to do 7 chakirot by serefa. I only have it by sekila. So answers the Gemara. Rav Yehuda says, "Vine emet nachon, vine emet nachon." What does that mean? It says by ira nidachat vine emet nachon, and it says by avodah zarah vine emet nachon. So therefore, he says hachatzre. So it comes out that there's going to be 3 parashiyot that it's written 11 words, right, which are talking about chakirat haedim. So therefore, I'm going to say 7 is the 7 chakirot. Dal tlat, I still have another 3. Those 3 is for gzera shava, right? What does that mean? That I'm learning gzera shava to the other ones. So he says pasha leuchada, right? But I still have another one, which is one word. He says that, right? The Rabbi Shimon, according to Rabbi Shimon, it's coming to add in nisrafin, and according to Rabbanan, min ta'adati bekal v'chomer tarach v'katav lakra. Sometimes, right, the Torah will come and teach it to you, right, from kal v'chomer, even though it's already going to be in the pasuk, the Torah will still write it out, even though you could have learned it from a kal v'chomer. Meaning, I could have learned it from a kal v'chomer, but still, the Torah many times will come and write it out just to make sure that you don't need to really learn it from a kal v'chomer, even though you could have learned it from a kal v'chomer. Okay, fine. So says the Gemara Megadef. What about Megadef? Right? He comes and he says like this. He says, right? He comes and he says like this. He says, Rabbi Yavu, Eimalatu yeshmona chakirot. So he comes and he says, maybe I'm going to tell you now that the extra word is coming to add in that there's going to be an extra chakirah, right? Which means, how does he know that the extra word? That means, according to Rabbi Shimon, there's one extra word. That extra word is coming to teach you, right, that about serefa, because we can't learn a kal v'chomer for serefa, because according to him, serefa is the highest one on the list. It's even stronger than sekila. So what's going to happen? So he says, Ushmona chakiro miika. He says, there's no such thing as 8. So what are you talking about then? So he says, Alamalo, why not? He says, what time is it? So he says, Tanya Meyachi. We also learned this in a Braita, right? What does that mean? In the hour, what time? Meaning we only asked, what hour was it? The 2nd hour or the 3rd hour? What about the minutes? We never learned about that. So he said, maybe that's an extra one, right? So then, according to that, we learned in a Braita, he would give Shmona chakirot. So hani chalabaya liba de Rabbi, that's according to Rabbi, according to Rabbi, de amal en adam toev velo klum, that a person will not make a mistake at all the time. Meaning, I tell you, what time is it? You wouldn't even make a mistake in the minutes. And then it makes sense. Adam toev shapid, so the mashu shapid. But according to Abaya, Liba de Yehuda, that a person says that a person will make a mistake until half an hour. And according to Rabbi, he says, Tawa and Shetuva, you could make even more mistake than a half an hour, even until an hour. So, Michael, what are you going to say then? You're going to tell me, no, it's 9:05, 9:25, 9:40. But there's a difference between 9 and 10. 9 and 10, yeah, that's a big difference. And according to Rabbi, it has to be 9 and 11, right? Or whatever it is. You understand? Or even that. It says, but how does it work? You're right. What machzor is it in the Yovel? Meaning, remember that in the Shemitahs, we asked about Shemitahs. So how many in Shemitahs is there? So he says, 1 second, but that's the Shavua. He says, no, Yovel, which Yovel? V'idach, another shita, he says, Kevin Damar Bez Shavua, once he said which Machzor and Shemitah, you don't need to know which Yovel. Okay? Fine. According to Shitat Rabbi Yosef, right, you only had 3 Chakirot. Which day, which hour, which place. You didn't have all 7. You only had 3. So Tanya, we learned to write them. He says what you said to Chachamim, according to your words. Somebody that comes and he says, Mesh had to go. Somebody killed him last night. Omelo, he's going to tell him, Be'ez Shavua, what Shemitah, Be'ez Shana, which year, Be'ez Chodesh, which month, Be'kama Chodesh, which day of the month. So Amrulo, he said, according to you, somebody that comes and he says, now he killed him. Omelo, he's going to say, Be'ez Yom, Be'ez Shah, Be'ez Makom, which day, which time, and which place. But 1 second, but you already know that. Even though you don't need to say it. But you just said it would happen right now. You know what day it is today. You know what day. Well, it happened today. You don't have to start asking which day, right? You don't have to ask these questions. He says, no, you still have to actually ask it. Like Shimon Lazar. So to hear, even though you know it, you still have to ask. Even though you don't need to, you still have to ask it like Shimon Lazar. But if you're saying, according to Yosef, yes, you have to continue asking it, asking the questions. Rabbi Yosef, according to Rabbi Yosef, he says the last night that somebody killed, that is shchiach in the majority of the cases. He says it's not shchiach. That's right now. What he killed right now, and within 2 minutes you're already in the betin. It's a little bit. You understand? Last night, yeah, that could happen, but right now, like much right now, it's a little bit too far. Okay, makrim atem oto. You guys know the guy that was killed. Taram we learned to write them. Makrim atem oto. Nochli arag Yisrael arag. They asked him, did he kill a Jew or did he kill a non-Jew? He tetembo. Did he give him a hatra? Did he accept the hatra? Did he accept the warning? He tirat mitad. Did he actually say that he doesn't care that he's going to be killed? If he killed within toke de dibur of it, or did he take a long time and then he killed? What about avodah zarah? Mi avad. Who did he serve? Lepor, right? This bal peor or markulis. Ubemavad, how did he serve it? Was zibuach, which bring a korban, kitur, the aktara korban, yisuch, hashtachava, all these things. How did he do it? So Amar Ula says, Minan atra min Torah. How do you know you have to do atra? He says, Shneimar, he said, what? Everything has to do with riyah? Ela ad shiru ta'amol shel davar. They have to see the reasoning of it. Im eno inyan lekaret, right? What does that mean? Before the avirah, he has to see the avirah. He has to understand the avirah. So that's what we're trying to actually understand. So he says, even though the onish of the pasuk is going to be karet, right? You still have it. So he says, karet, but now that was only talking about karet, right? What about any other of the death penalties? Because at the end of the day, over here, this is a karet. So he comes and he says, so therefore this also applies to malkut, which means that even though malkut is not written in the pasuk, if you don't need it for karet, because again, anyway, Betin are going to come and they're going to punish, or karet comes from Shemaim, so you don't need that, you're still going to put it on somebody that has relations with a sister, and therefore he comes and he says, right, on every single avera lo ta'aseh, there is going to be a karet, and there's going to be malkut. We already know that. Remember, the lo ta'aseh, you have a karet and a malkut, and obviously if they're going to get malkut, they're going to be exempt from the karet, but that Bezat Hashem will speak about another day.